Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. For this video, we're going to be discussing a fairly recent Seiko 62 Mas Divers reissue in their SPB297. This watch is also affectionately coined the Blue Birch because, like some other Seikos that are out there, the design cues are really built off of a very successful Grand Seiko timepiece in their white birch. And the white birch is actually a watch that I personally own. And what they were able to mimic for the SPB297 is that thick, rustic texture on the white birch. But of course, it's a blue dial watch. And aesthetically, I just think this package in a 62 Mas diver kind of works quite well. And for reference, 62 Mas really does stem from the 62 caliber family that was released in around 1965 when Seiko first started putting these divers on the scene. Now at the time of recording this video, I'm sure there's a lot of other reviews on the SPB297, so the way I'm going to break this one down is just to give you an overall feeling for how I feel this watch wears, some of the things that I really enjoy about this watch, and then some dislikes as well. So the first thing I like, and this is just in general for most 62 Mas reissues, is just the case proportions and comfort on the wrist. So with this particular watch, it's a 40.5 millimeter case diameter. Lug to lug distance is around 47.5, I believe. And in case thickness, Seiko says it's around 13 millimeters. I actually measured at about 13.7 when you account for the slightly domed sapphire crystal. That gives a nice vintage aesthetic, by the way. And again, the aesthetics on this watch are just really pleasing to my eye, and I really enjoy wearing this timepiece with those case dimensions. It will suit a large different number of wrist sizes, coming in at 40.5 millimeters. Some other common 62 Mas case characteristics that I enjoy is that this watch does feature drilled lugs, so it's quite easy just to swap out the supply bracelet for different strap options. And the lug spacing for the head of this watch is an even 20 millimeters, so accessorizing it with different straps is universally quite acceptable and easy to do. The crown on this particular watch is free of crown guards. It's nicely sized and easy to operate, and of course it is screwed down, giving this watch 200 meters of water resistance, and it is a certified diver. And if we hone in on the dial again for this particular timepiece, I do find the layout quite symmetrical. Nicely done indices, which are very rectangular, with a double index at the 12 o'clock for orientation, a simple date framed out at the 3 o'clock position, and even the handset is quite simple and very easy to read at a glance. I also like the fact that this watch has a printed minute track and it doesn't have a chapter ring, which in the past Seiko's been known to have alignment issues with their chapter ring. In low lighting conditions, the texture in the dial is actually quite subtle, but then you get it out in the sunlight and it really pops. Now speaking of low light performance, because this is a Seiko diver, their Lumabright formulation is quite potent, so reading this watch in the dark will not be an issue. The Loom is long lasting and quite evenly applied for this particular diver. And there's also a Loom pip at the cardinal triangle position of the bezel insert, which is also quite good for the price point. This bezel is 120 clicks unidirectional, like most of their dive bezels, but the action on it is very good, a little tighter than I found for other Seiko divers in this price category. And it's nicely coin-edged and quite easy to grip, and there are not alignment issues with my example of the SPB297. Now if we move away from the head of the watch, the bracelet construction for the SPB297 is also quite decent for the price, which I'll get into at the end of this video. The links are quite solid. All that to be said though, it might be a good segue to transition into some of the dislikes for this watch, because there are some aspects of the bracelet and clasp that aren't so great. Starting off with the end links, which are solid on this bracelet. There is a bit of flex to them though, so they're not fully integrated as well as I'd like to see onto the head of the watch, because you can definitely wiggle them around just a little bit. In terms of a clasp for this bracelet, not the most solid clasp that's out there, It does have a pressed metal feel, and it's actually a little bit difficult to close when you try and slap it on the wrist. And the diver's extension on these type of bracelets for me isn't that great, and I really don't utilize it at all. I think probably the biggest point for contention within these 62 mass divers, and basically any Seiko diver between the $1,000 to $1,500 price point, is the use of a 6R35 movement. Now for me, I've had really poor luck with the tolerances of this movement. I mean, the accuracy is stated to -15 to +25 seconds per day, but I'm usually at the very end of those tolerances. So the deviation for timekeeping on this watch hasn't been that good. And at the end of the day, it's still a 3 Hz movement. They did extend the power reserve to 70 hours with this watch, but I would really love to see Seiko start incorporating some of their upper tier 8 series caliber movements in any of their divers that cost well over $1,000. And on that note, I wasn't a huge fan of the retail pricing for this particular watch. It's currently listed at 1,625 Canadian dollars, which to me is really getting up there when you're just trying to buy a 62 mass reissue. And I will also mention that you really shouldn't be paying retail for this watch. I purchased this watch from a Seiko authorized dealer, and I was able to get a nice discount. And there's a lot of good deals to be had for this watch on the secondary or gray market as well. So that's my breakdown for the Seiko SPB297. Overall, really like the aesthetics of the watch and comfort on the wrist. I do wish that they would start enhancing the tolerances for the 6R35 movement or move away from that movement altogether. But outside of that, pretty good dive watch and it looks amazing. Now, as always, guys, I would love to hear your feedback in the comments section of this video, so please sure to post that below. And if you do enjoy my content, please do consider subscribing. It does help out the channel a ton. So that's going to wrap up this video, and I can't wait to catch you guys in the next one.